Welcome to this practice. We'll be discussing the 6 stations of the mind. They are past and future, self and other, likes and dislikes. I'll explain that more as we get underway in the practice. We're also going to be going down from the top of the Vayus to the base of the Vayus. So prana Vayu, udana Vayu, dhyana Vayu, samana Vayu, apana Vayu. And my hope is that I can help to quiet the mental noise of your 6 stations in the mind, the mental broadcasts that come out of those 6 stations. And each of those stations has both a beautiful quality, a skillful, auspicious quality, more than one, in fact, and each of them has the problematic aspect. So it's really helpful to have a sense of that in us, which knows how to take refuge and not be lost in the 6 stations of the mind. From that witnessing, we can then do something, what we see in our broadcast, we can do something with that. We can tend to it. So let's get into the practice, and always let me know in the comments down below what questions you have about yoga or any other thing related to the science of yoga or the practice of awakening from suffering. And I'll do my best to respond to your questions and perhaps even making additional practices that come off of your questions. It's also helpful if you subscribe to the channel. So, okay, see you in class. Hello, everyone, and good morning. We are coming together to talk about the 6 stations of the mind and how to navigate that in your yoga practice so that you can prevent things like unhelpful behaviors that keep perpetuating themselves because history is simply repeating itself without our inquiry or our examination into it. And by that, I mean our mental history. Of course, our bodies are there too. I don't mean the larger history of society. However, since society is made up of individuals, what we can see is that history is repeating itself in society also. And yoga would be recommending to us that we really look into how our minds are getting in the way of our wisest and most loving decision-making in our lives. So the 6 stations of the mind, that is 6, like this, the 6 stations are like radio broadcasts that at any one time they're coming through as if you had the car radio is playing more than one station at a time. We tend to have our favorites, the stations that we hang out on the most often, but the 6 stations, just to summarize, are past and future, self and other, likes and dislikes. So that is the past, which can cause rumination, or the feeling that we are holding on to the past. We haven't been able to, let's say, let go of the past. Past can also be where we're holding trauma pockets in our minds, brains, bodies, hearts. Past can also be a place where we have a sense of our foundation, the strength of our ability to be grounded and to be someone who is actively learning from past experiences. Future, let's say across from past, if you were to put them on the seesaw like this, future can be problematic insofar as we tend to daydream about a different future, or we fantasize about a different outcome for the future, or we try to overplan the future. We may be hypervigilant about our planning for the future. We may even be afraid of the future or have this kind of very common human experience, fear of the unknown. But future can also be something that we wisely steward ourselves towards, that we can look at future and the unknowns and actually feel at ease with the unknowns. That's a place within us that gets more comfortable facing the unknowns and not anticipating the future to just be a repetition of the past, because we clear up these 2 stations so that seesaw might come into balance. When it comes to self, the station of self can be a place where we experience self-confidence, self-advocacy, self-appreciation, self-kindness, self-compassion, all of these beautiful qualities. And self can also be where we experience self-criticism, self-condemnation, self-abandonment, kind of denigrating of oneself, or lack of self-worth, or a fragmented sense of self. We aren't able to know who we are. It's like looking in a mirror that has some cracks in it, and we have different fragments or shards. We see ourselves in our profession, and then our personal life is different, or this friendship we show up and then we change ourselves over here, and we don't have a sense of being able to be like one whole authentic person. The station of other, which we might have as opposed to self for right now for this illustration, like another seesaw here. Other can be something so helpful to us. First of all, it's intrinsic to our species to be connected to others. We are dependent upon our interconnected nature with everything and everyone. And so other can be a collaborator, an ally, a person who you experience camaraderie with, a source of inspiration, a role model. Other could be a beneficial teacher. Other could be a student that you're ushering into a new development of their own learning. So other can be a sense of community or a place where you feel a quality of belonging. But other can also be something that we fear. We find other to be a threat. We may see other as challenging us, or we might have aversion towards the ways in which some other people are expressing themselves. Or other could be a source of competition. If we're in the self station that has some kind of scarcity, for example, or lack of self-worth, for example, we might see other as a competitor. If we're in the self station that's like, I must bolster myself and be better than others in order to be viable, we may again go to competition with other and always looking to be somehow ahead of them, which is really a survival strategy and not one that I'm recommending, but it's based on an instinct for survival. Let's add one more seesaw. So I'll put that one here. And that would be the stations of likes and dislikes, or craving, grasping, desire, and aversion, resistance, distaste for, dvesha over here. So with craving, with desire, it can really benefit us to have a sense of like, what's my purpose? What's my direction? Where is my passion? Where's my focus going? Can I be in relationship with that for which I most deeply long? So that would be a healthy expression of desire. I'd have motivation or volition to do some of those things. But desire can also be an expense on our system, because we may have more desires, like sometimes say like horizontally desiring. These are called switchbacks on the mountain. I'm wanting this sweet or this treat, or I'm wanting this thing I see, this shiny object over here, or this dazzling thing over here. And we can end up being easily marketed to by our commercialized society. So we want this and we want that, and our energy is going away from home. It's not getting harnessed for this other purpose, which might be more dharmic, for example. And the station of aversion or resistance or dvesha, that can end up being something where our life gets actually smaller. We resist, we avert, we move back from, we don't want to include that. We might compartmentalize parts of our life so we don't have to experience that. We kind of cut it off. However, knowing what we're aversive to is also a place to cultivate a sense of discernment and clarity. We understand why we have aversion to something. We may establish clear boundaries as a result of understanding our aversive aspects. It's when it's robotic and reflexive and not filtered through some wisdom or consideration for your own growth or for the growth of others, that these 6 stations can become problematic. And if you put them on this kind of merry-go-round that I just designed here, past and future, self and other, likes and dislikes, you can end up at any one time, if you are walking around this thing, maybe you tend to hang out in past and wanting the past to repeat itself because some special people were there. And so your merry-go-round or seesaw is kind of tipped in this direction. Maybe you hang out in the past, regrets about things that you have done and you wish you hadn't done them. And so your past self other kind of heavy on this side of it. Or you never visit the past, you don't want to think about it, and you hang out on future planning, and how in future planning you're going to avoid what you don't want and you're going to get what you want. And so you may be straddling a couple different stations there. And the idea is not to organize those strategies better, to go to some like intellectual or cognitive savvy about it, but to loosen the grip on all of that and come into the center where we have a sense of space. And in that space, we experience things like love or grace, inner peace. And from there, the decisions that we make about how to participate in our life hopefully come from greater wisdom. For sure, the 6 stations are wrapped into our behaviors. our behaviors are like the concrete examples, the obvious manifestation of those things, but those things are swirling about within us. So yoga is a beautiful time to set that aside, to like loosen the grip that these 6 stations have on you so that your center becomes clear and whole. So that's our mission this morning. Please take a comfortable seat. Rest your hands in your lap. It's a blessing to be here, even if you're suddenly aware that you have a very noisy mental broadcast mind, or like I might have stimulated some reflections for you, like, oh my gosh, let's enjoy that we have the privilege, the opportunity to be here together. You can imagine yourself, your inner self, as like the central channel, the plumb line of your body. And as you breathe up and down this plumb line, just picture the space around that center getting larger. Like you're expanding that sphere that is your place of refuge inside and temporarily setting everything else aside. You're just giving yourself this refuge, this beautiful space that you deserve. You help create that space. There's both the surrender of your attachment to those stations and the cultivation of an internal sense of refuge. So let's use the inhalation. Though the inhale comes up like this, it's also expanding. So the breath in the pelvis has a certain circumference. The circumference of the breath gets wider at the floating ribs, at the back ribs, and then allow even the heart to feel expansive. On the exhale, you can picture that surrender, that maybe you're even like snipping the lines of those 6 stations for right now. Use the breath as your ally, your support. You're also drawing on every past practice you've had of pranayama or yoga. Intrinsically, we are connected to the strengths of these 6 stations. We're just asking for the liabilities to fade away for now. Please raise your hand to your heart. May we know the real from the unreal, that which is true from that which is untrue. May we move from forgetting to remembering, from darkness to light, from the finite to the infinite, from the bitter to the sweet. Om. Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om. With your exhale, you may bow your head to your heart and release your hands. Open your eyes. I'd like you to take a seat in Baddha Konasana. So put the soles of the feet together. Hold on to the big toes or your ankles and pull up. So if you have a shorter torso and longer arms, you could hold the ankles and then pull up. The idea here is that I want you to have a little bit of tautness between the shoulders and the hands. So the neck is really stretching up from there. Sometimes I use this sort of barber pole or corkscrew method to come back down into the center. And what I mean by that is moving from the head, we're going to be going down, neck, throat, and into the center to come back home. So on your inhale, lift up and stretch the front of your throat. And then exhale, go right and down with your chin. Inhale, go right and up. Exhale, left and down. And let's consider that every part of tension in the body, inhale back up, all of these tensions are the manifestation of thoughts. Exhale, release. Those thoughts became behaviors, actions, reactions. And so it's all here in the physical body. We're going to repeat what we just did. Inhale to go up. Exhale, right and down. Inhale, right and up. Exhale, left and down. Inhale, left and up. And then exhale to release. So pulling down on the toes here helps to make that taut. Now cross your ankles into Sukhasana. So crossing at the shins there. Hold on to the knees. And then again, pull up so it's really taut. And as you inhale, rotate your head to your right as far as it goes. Keep the left shoulder back. Exhale, bring your chin down. Inhale, look to your right and go up. Exhale, look left and come down so your head is horizontal, gazing to your left. Keep the arms and the knees taut. Exhale your chin down to your collarbone. Inhale left, and then looking up. Exhale, gaze right so your head becomes level, and then chin down towards your collarbone. And once more to the other side. So gazing right and then up to center. And then gaze left. So your head is neutral there as you're gazing left, not tipped backwards. Bring your chin down towards your collarbone. And then rotate back to center. Okay. Having the two knees closer makes it easier for the back of the left hand to come to the outside of the right thigh. And if you do the back of your hand, your palm is facing away. Go ahead and hook those and then place your right hand to hold your left wrist. And now tip your head to your left. So you're going to start at the head as if you were a tall blade of grass going down to your left. Bring your chin in towards your throat. Acknowledge the right side of your neck. And keeping both arms and both hands stable, allow the tip to your left to be gravity supported for your head. Chin snug towards the collarbone means that you might be able to stretch into the upper trapezius, maybe parts of your levator scapula. Now keeping your head heavy to the left, chin towards the throat, wrap your right arm around behind the small of your back. And in that, you may change the dynamics between your shoulder and your earlobe on the right side. And then exhale, tone your right low belly and bring yourself back up to center. Release. Put your hands in your lap. You might feel a little bit swimmy. It's going to be okay. And then bring the back of your right hand to the outside of your left thigh. Take your left hand to your left wrist to support that. And begin leaning to your right, starting at the top of your head. And as the weight of your head then brings with it the weight of the occiput, the base of the skull, and then you start feeling that in the left side of your neck. Keep your hands and arms firm. Bring your chin towards your left collarbone, so you may feel the side and the back of your neck. Allow the breath to be purposeful on the inhale, drawing in a sense of your own inner clarity. On the exhale, surrendering the extracurricular thought bunnies that might be around the edges of your mind. And wrap your left arm around behind the small of your back. Notice any change in the left side of your neck. And then exhale, roll up to your seat. Release your hands to your knees. And notice as you release the various forms of compression and pressure there, what happens now with the prana moving in your body. And now come to Siddhasana again, where the knees are going to be wider. So our corkscrew is going to keep going down. We'll be addressing this region. It can't be uniquely addressed all on its own. We're going to be including the torso. But as you take a wider seat, the reach of your hand across is going to need a little bit more rotation. So stretch the left upper back. Let that be broad there as you bring your right hand to the outside of your left knee. Left hand, excuse me, to the outside of your right knee. That is my right and left, but it's opposite for you. So left hand to the outside of your right knee, right hand behind you. Let's make the torso mostly upright and picture the tautness of your right knee pressing down to stabilize your left hand. Pull up through the crown of your skull and rotate to your right. So try to sense the value, not of just where you're turning towards, but the value of where you're turning from. So the upper left side of the shoulder blade, left upper back, left shoulder, even the floating ribs on the left side. As you rotate around, consider those places during your inhale. As you exhale, you may more consider the right shoulder, right chest, your heart, your gaze. And then let's exhale, come around to face forward. And again, you might feel kind of asymmetrical or a little bit swimmy. Your body has only done one side of that position. Sometimes you'll get a cleansing response. You feel a little lightheaded. Might get a yoga hot flash somewhere, and then it will settle down. Bring your right hand across to your left knee, make it taut, so you hold firmly, and then pull up through the spine, walk your left hand around behind you. And as you're rotating, keep the crown of the skull rising, and let's consider where we're turning from, which is the right upper back, right shoulder blade, even the right kidney. On the exhale, you can put your attention on where you're turning towards. So left shoulder, left upper chest, your head, your gaze. And then exhale and come around to face forward. And let's take notice again. I hope as you feel like you're coming down more and more into your body. So let's bring this now onto the hands and knees. Please come to table pose. In table pose, you can put your hands so they're going to be shoulder width apart, and the knees can go a few inches back behind your hips. So let's make it a stable table pose. You'll know where neutral is. And you'll know that neutral if from this table pose, you can easily curl the toes under and just lift your knees to plank pose. And then touch the knees down. And you'll be able to do that by just rolling over the toes, knees down, knees up. Not a big adjustment between the hands and the feet. So that's the distance for your plank pose. It'll also be the distance for your table pose. Let's touch the knees down and then inhale to cat. Exhale back towards child's pose. Squeeze the breath out. Keep the hands and knees where they are. Inhale, roll up to cat pose. Might be a long table pose for you. Exhale, come through to cow pose. Bring your chest and heart forward. Open your throat. Inhale to cat pose. Exhale, child's pose. Move back towards child's pose with your cat pose spine. So it's actually quite rounded. And then inhale, roll up through child's into cat pose. Exhale, into cow pose. Now inhale to table pose. And exhale, plank. Inhale, right knee to your right elbow. Exhale, plank. Inhale, left knee forward. Exhale, plank. Inhale, downward facing dog pose. And exhale, child's pose. Come over your toes. You're going to lower your knees down. Point the toes. There's child's pose. Inhale, cat. Now becomes cow pose. Exhale, downward dog pose. Raise your hips high. Gaze back between your heels. Inhale, use your cat pose spine to roll into plank pose. And then exhale, come into table with the knees, just lightly touch them down. Inhale to plank. Exhale, knees lightly down like you're just dusting the floor. Inhale to plank. Exhale, knees lightly down. Inhale to plank. And exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, cat becomes plank. And exhale, touch the knees down, reach back to child's pose. Walk your hands back towards your knees and rise up to kneeling. And pause in Vajrasana. So you've made your way into the shoulders, the heart, the upper back, the solar plexus, coming down, like we're taking an elevator to come back down to the ground floor. Okay, so we're going to add to that sequence we were just doing. Please return to table pose. Check that your table pose is also your plank pose, and then touch the knees down. Okay, inhale to cat. Now exhale, right knee up to your elbow. Inhale, cat. Exhale, left knee up to your elbow. Inhale, cat pose. Exhale, cow pose. So in those movements, the body was not going side to side. We're only moving one limb. That was the knee. So inhale to cat pose. Exhale, right knee up. Inhale, cat pose. Exhale, left knee. Inhale, cat pose. Exhale, cow pose. Lift your sitting bones. Bring your chest and your heart forward. Open your throat. Inhale, downward dog pose. Exhale, you can gaze back between your heels. And on the next inhale, raise your right leg straight up behind you. And then exhale, right knee to your right elbow, plank pose. Inhale, raise your right leg, Ekapada, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Exhale, right knee to your elbow, plank pose. We're not wobbling side to side. Inhale, raise your right leg high, Ekapada, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And exhale, touch your right foot down. Now the other side, inhale, raise your left leg. Exhale, squeeze forward, left knee to your elbow. Inhale, left leg high. Exhale, plank pose, left knee to your elbow. Inhale, downward dog, last one. And exhale, left foot down next to your right foot. Inhale to plank. And exhale, touch the knees down, release back to child's pose. Walk your hands to your knees. Rise up to Vajrasana. And drop inside again. Don't give any of your prana or your mind to the thoughts. Stay with the sensations and the breath and that which is inside, already deeply still, already deeply quiet. And please come back to table pose. So we're still finding our way back down into the core of the body. So you place your hands in table pose, put your knees again a couple inches back behind your hips. And check that this is your plank pose distance. And then touch the knees down. So I'd like you just to take your right toes back to plank pose. And without moving your left hip sideways, press into both hands and arms and rotate your right hip up over your left hip. And then place your right heel down. So it might line up with your left toes. But we don't swing the left hip backwards in this case. And then balance with your left knee, left outer hip, left arm. Pick up the toe. You can just like have your fingers dusting the floor for a moment right here, the tips of the fingers. And then inhale and rotate to open to a side, kind of a side plank variation. Press into your right heel, but keep the outer left hip also on your radar screen so it's strong and healthy. Reach from your right hip into your right fingertips and thumb. And then keeping the left arm strong and your left hip stable, bring your right hand down without yet unwinding the hips. Then rotate your hips to level, pivot your right heel up, and bring the right knee into table pose. Okay, take the left toes back, press into both arms. Keep the outer right hip stable as you raise your left hip, almost like you're going to stack it over your right hip. Pivot your left heel to the floor, make the right arm strong, and just dangle the left fingertips for a moment close to the mat. And then inhale, raise your left arm. Open the left side of your waist. Reach from the strength of your right outer hip into your right knee and shin. And from your left outer hip into your left heel. Let's breathe smoothly from the left hip into the left fingertips and thumb. And then exhale, lower your left hand down without unwinding your hips. And then roll your hips back to level. Touch the left knee down. Reach back to child's pose. Walk your hands back to your knees and rise up to kneeling. And again, as you come back to your seat, don't give any of your energy out to the thoughts, which will probably lurk around. So this is a chance to practice not giving your prana away to these thoughts that pull you from center outwards. And not giving energy right now, excuse me, to past, future, self or other, craving or aversion. Go inside where you can see yourself making the efforts on your yoga mat. There's like a loving witness that sees you in this process, in this dedication. And then place your hands back in table pose. This time, rise up to downward dog pose as you breathe in. And exhale while you're in dog pose. Inhale, raise your right leg high. And keeping the left hip stable, stack your right hip over your left hip. Reach back from your left outer hip and your left outer heel towards the wall that is behind you. So the left side waist does not intrinsically shorten in this position. You're able to really stretch from the inner belly to your right heel. And then exhale, level your hips off. Bring yourself forward to plank pose. Place your right knee down. Rotate your pelvis so the left hip goes over the right hip. And inhale, pick up your left arm. Kind of like this variation on side plank pose or side angle pose. Press into your left heel firmly. Press into your right hand firmly. And then exhale, transition thoughtfully, left hand to the floor and into plank pose. Inhale, downward facing dog pose. Gaze back between your heels and then raise your left leg high. And keeping your right outer hip stable, stack your hips, left hip over the right. Reach from the left low belly into your left heel and wrap the outer right hip and outer right heel towards the wall that's at the back of your mat. And then inhale, come forward to plank pose, touch the left toes down near the right toes. Exhale, touch your left knee down and pivot your right heel. Rotate over the strength of your left hip. Reach through your right arm. And then exhale, follow your right hand slowly down to the floor, level your hips and step to plank pose. Inhale, downward facing dog. And then roll over your toes, touch your knees down, and release back to child's pose, this time to stay for several breath cycles. In child's pose, walk your hands and elbows back towards your knees. So you can kind of consolidate your body down to your child's pose. And again, let yourself rest in there. The world will always be crowding in with information and stimulus, and our thought habits, they'll be there on the storms of the ocean. Right now we come into refuge. So come in your child's pose into surrender. And don't give any of your energy to a thought that would pull you away. And please walk your hands back towards your knees. So that should have been, you can rise up to kneeling. That ought to have felt like a little bit of a heating sequence for you. You got a little bit warm. We're in Vata season now. We've made a transition almost completely to Vata season. So having some warmth in your practice can actually be really helpful. Right, so we've come down like this corkscrew. Let's spend some time now in the lower belly. So I sometimes talk about it like you're wringing out the dish sponge or the dish towel. But what I'd like you to do is have 2 blocks at the ready. Step your right foot forward between your hands and come into Anjaneyasana. And in Anjaneyasana, you can see that the knee, it does come forward. It's over the toes. So the heel and the ankle do have some flexion there. Okay, let's place the hands on the 2 blocks. You could use your fingertips if you have a longer torso and shorter arms, or for any other reason. Root the tailbone down and encourage your hips to come down and forward towards your right heel, but not like you're hammocking or kind of sagging into your left hip socket. And let's come into the Ujjayi breath. Lift your heart, collarbones. Don't let the shoulders sort of crowd over the heart here. And place your right hand on your right knee, keeping the torso and your right thigh like kind of connected. Exhale, press with your right hand against your right thigh to rotate your belly to the right. And think of it as part of your belly, yeah, the solar plexus, the navel, but even lower than that, like If it was the washing machine, the top loading washing machine with the thing in the middle, you want to make sure all the clothes get turned. They're all getting the suds. So rotate the lowest part of the belly during the exhale. Let's picture yourself coming down almost like you were a scuba diver, or you're in a submarine and you're going down a little deeper into the ocean. Just inhale. And then as you exhale, unwind and place your hands on the two blocks. I'm going to ask you to tuck your left toes under, straighten your left leg. And then work your right leg towards whatever a straight position is going to be for your right hamstrings, including coming up to your fingertips on your blocks if you need to or prefer to. Press into all 10 toes. The right heel is down, the left heel is lifted. Press into all 8 fingers and both thumbs, and then make your spine into a cat pose spine. Keep your cat pose spine and rotate your outer left hip back, rotate your outer left heel down. And then open your left arm, your torso, and come into this variation of triangle pose. And in this triangle pose, press from your lower belly down into both feet. So your pose is really quite stable from your hips down through your legs into your heels and toes. Breathe in, and as you next exhale, wrap your left arm around behind the small of your back as we did earlier in the practice. You may even wrap your left arm around and hold the top of your right thigh. Keep the legs strong, and as you root your tailbone down, maintain the breath. And then exhale, unwind your left arm back towards its block. Come into your cat pose spine again. So you've got this like parachute on the back body. Then pivot your left heel up, bend your right knee, and return to Anjaneyasana. And press into your left knee wherever it's comfortable to do so. Press into your right heel, right toes. Inhale, rise up. And then exhale, and let's release. Touch the floor with your fingers, or come to your blocks with your fingers rather. And please step to plank pose, which is going to be an elevated plank pose because you have your hands on these two blocks. Inhale to an elevated downward dog pose. And then exhale, left foot forward. Touch your right knee down. Come a little forward with your hips, but not like you're hanging in or sagging into your right hip joint. Lift your heart, lift your collarbones. Breathe down into the right hip. Maybe even the hip flexors are there. Notice where your mind wanders to, but also how you keep bringing it back. So, as I said before, the world will always be flooding in with more information, and our minds will be like erupting. We'll go for holes in the backyard. Also, more thoughts popping up all the time. But can you stay aware of the observer in you, the loving witness in you, watching yourself make all of these efforts? These are just shapes with the body. The different shapes are helpful to the body, but we're not competing with anything. We're not even comparing ourselves to anything. We're just having this experience right here, right now. Place your left hand on your left thigh and think again of the washing machine with the center pole. You want the churning to go all the way down. So rotate your heart, your solar plexus, the mid belly, and then your lower belly. And in this rotation, think about the exhale as a time where the rotation becomes a little bit deeper in the inner belly. The bones of the body may not move further, but the internal sense of the twist can go deeper. And then exhale to release, and go ahead and touch the two blocks. Come to your fingertips now. And as you inhale, straighten your right leg, press into your right toes. Slowly straighten your left leg, whatever amount is appropriate for your hamstrings. Shift into a cat pose spine. We're using this cat pose spine here so we can give some space for your left hip socket to maintain integrity. Rotate your right hip kind of around your left hip. You open the pelvis to the right, pivot your right heel to the floor, and none of that had to disturb your left hip joint. Reach through your right arm. Of course, you may have myriad sorts of thoughts coming up as opportunities to practice not engaging them. See if you can connect again to that witness place in yourself that sees you're making a dedicated effort right now. This is your present moment experience. And this present moment experience is going to be a part of tomorrow's past. As you next exhale, begin bringing your right arm down. Maintain this kind of cat pose spine, especially for your pelvis and your lower back. That gives some space to your left hip as you pivot your right heel up, bend your left knee, return to Anjaneyasana. Press into your right knee only so far as it's comfortable. Press into your left heel and toes. Raise your arms. And then exhale and release. Let's put both hands on the two blocks and again step into plank pose. It's a high plank pose because we're up on the blocks. Inhale to downward dog pose. And now exhale, pick up your right foot, step forward, pick up your left foot, step through, and come down to take a seat. Come to Dandasana. The word danda means staff, like you have a hiking staff. So Dandasana is like Gandalf has a staff. If you can picture, you have your staff and you tap it on the ground and all of the hobbits come into order. So all of the thoughts, they lean back and let Gandalf lead. In Dandasana, lift your heart, broaden your collarbones, and listen for how you arrive into a center. Even though there's movement in your body, your heart rate, respiration, temperature, all those things are happening. And then reach for your blanket, and let's put the blanket under the hips for Janusirsasana. Bring the right leg in for Janusirsasana. Yeah. Once you have the right foot in, I'm going to turn on an angle so you can see better. The right foot kind of comes into the place that you would have it for Siddhasana. And it's not the case that everyone's knee is going to come to the floor. That is totally fine. You can take an extra blanket or a block and put that under your knee if you would like to. And rotate your torso towards your left leg. We're still going to corkscrew down and in to the base. Place your left hand behind you, please, and raise your right arm with your inhale. And then exhale, and as you come forward and down, reach for whatever is the comfortable place for your right hand to hold on your left leg. It's also appropriate to use a yoga strap so that your left foot would be closer and your right hand could easily hold onto that. Relax the weight of your head. Relax the weight of your mind. Allow the breath to come into the back hemisphere of the body. Something that can be really helpful in this pose is that your chest and your thigh are actually touching. And that doesn't mean that we all have to have super flexible hamstrings. It might mean that for some of you, you're going to bend the left knee up so that the thigh and the chest are touching. The benefit of that is for the inner animal body to feel more relaxed, and also that the breath will more naturally broaden across the back of the waist. It'll do that because of the pressure of your left thigh against your torso. Allow your breathing to become easeful and steady. And then inhale and raise up just enough that your torso is maybe about 45 degrees to your leg, right? Doesn't have to be perfectly 45 degrees. Cross your right hand to the outside of your left ankle or shin, and then rotate your lower belly to the left. You're going to, of course, take your shoulders, your chest, and your heart with you, but turn from the deep inner belly to your left. And then please release. And as you rise up to sit, come to Siddhasana. Take a seat where you're going to return again to this sense of center. From that center within which is this loving witness that sees you making an effort, right? Every one of us is subject to the 6 stations of the mind. Every one of us has a past that can influence the now. We're all susceptible to apprehension about the future. Yet we're also all capable of sitting right here in the present. Let's put the left foot on the inside for Siddhasana now, and take your right leg out to Janusirsasana. And aim your navel and your torso towards your right leg. Right hand behind, inhale, rise up. And then exhale to come forward and down. And again, it can be really helpful to bend your right knee so that your torso is actually pressing on your thigh. Your thigh is pressing on your torso. It's actually more rare that people can have their legs straight and have that contact. So don't compare or compete. That won't be helpful. Notice that the breath is going to expand into the back of your waist when you have that kind of contact from your thigh against your chest. And each breath cycle can be one that's actually soothing to your whole nervous system. And then rise up about 45 degrees or so from your thigh. Cross your left hand to the outside of your right ankle or shin or your knee, and swish your lower belly across your right thigh. And for those of you studying this practice of the Vayus, which we've been discussing a lot recently, this particular sequence goes from the uppermost Vayu down to the lowermost Vayu. So prana Vayu, udana Vayu, vyana Vayu, samana Vayu, now apana Vayu. And then let's unwind and please return to Siddhasana. And see if you can take the alternate. So if you had before the right heel on the inside, now can you do it comfortably with the left heel on the inside? And if it's your unfamiliar side, can you just get comfortable feeling that? Can that be okay? Notice what happens with your mind. And gently resist giving any of your life force to a thought right now. You can open your eyes. We're going to lie on the floor and do a little bit of work, hips and lower belly. Now, there are some sort of scientific technique aspects to yoga that are worth knowing about. And one of those is that when we put the heel, which we're going to do in a moment, across the top of the thigh, so we'll be lying on the back when we do that, where your heel ends up touching is in this lower belly region. And so the heel is used for a little massage against the lower belly. We'll do it in a reclined position. It's easier on people's hips and knees. But there is some science to that, is what I'm saying. It's not all just because it looks interesting. There's a kind of body science to it. And while ancient yogis may not have been able to say that in terms of the inner organs, they knew something about the movement of prana in the body and how to bring it back into balance. So it's not going to be possible for all of us to put the heel in the belly over here. It's just not, our design might not be there. However, with that loving witness watching you, making your best effort, your earnest effort, there's no need for mental chatter or narrative about what you can or can't do in yoga. So cross your right ankle over your left knee as a starting place. And that might be the place that you need to be working right now. So this, we could say, we call this figure 4 pose. Pick up your left knee and hold behind the left hamstring. And that may certainly be a powerful enough stretch for you in the physical body, the outer hip, maybe the outer hamstring, inner groin. The practice of Hatha yoga wasn't really concerned so much about the flexibility of the outer body, though it was very interested in the inner body. And these 5 Vayus we've been talking about were a part of that. So now, if this is the place you'd like to hang out, by all means, stay where you are. If you'd like, you could also put the left foot down and bring the right heel into the left low belly. So as you place your heel there, your foot goes into a kind of lotus pose position or Padmasana. And then as you bring the left knee into your chest, the right heel snuggles into the left lower belly more. So it's like touching a little activation point there for Apana Vayu. As you snuggle the left knee in whatever position you've chosen for your ankle, whether that's figure 4 pose, or this is really a kind of Supta Ardha Padmasana, reclined half lotus pose. Whatever you've chosen, let the breath come down to meet you in the pelvis. If you'd like, you can take the next stage of this pose, which is that you take the left leg up. You might want to just choose peace of mind. You don't have to do everything. So, and then you can glide your left leg towards your torso, and that makes it the right heel goes in a little bit more into the left low belly. So notice, how you choose, and if you get into comparison, like comparing your today self with a past self, or comparing yourself with me or with somebody else, that comparison quickly takes hold of self and other likes and dislikes. And I would not recommend that right now. So choose based on your tranquility. And then we're going to release the poses. Whatever poses you chose to do, place your right foot back on the floor next to your left foot. And come to a tranquil mind. The present moment is all you have. And it's really immense, the present moment. It's enough. And then cross your left ankle over your right knee. And you may choose just to place that at the top of your thigh there, near to your knee. That's fine. And pick up. You can hold behind your hamstring, called figure 4 pose. The outer left hip might be just saying, wow, thank you so much. This is plenty of stretch for us right now. And your hip gets to tell you, because it's a part of your Annamaya Kosha, your physical body. You can't just sort of, what is it called? Jackhammer your way through that to try to get to a deeper experience in the inner body. So with respect for your musculoskeletal body, you may choose to follow me where you place the left foot into Padmasana. The left heel goes into the right lower belly. See where the toes end up? So the heel is in the right low belly there, and you could clasp your hands behind. You could also clasp around if you prefer. As you make the choices that you make, notice what your mind is doing with the choice making. I do encourage you again and again to not let the mind intrude, but you may be like witnessing it as if you were watching fish in an aquarium. There they are, going by. These are the thoughts swimming about. But you're not in the aquarium with those fish. You're able to just watch them. Okay, and you may choose to take the right leg up. You may choose not to. It's okay either way. So this pose will have the name Supta for supine. It'll have the name Ardha for half Padmasana. And then we could add to that a kind of Paschimottanasana or Janusirsasana, because we've got this one leg extended. And some of you may choose to touch the head and the knee towards each other, and some of you may choose not to. Maybe you have no choice because it won't go. So it's the choiceless choice. But the idea there isn't, can you make that happen, more that it's the left heel going into the low belly. And then step down and place your left foot down next to your right foot. And come to rest. Noticing, where do you go now in your mind? Where do you go inside? You may have ample opportunity to see the fish swimming by, the past, the future, the self, the other, the liking and not liking, grasping and dissociating. Okay, so the purpose of that pose, whether it's figure 4 or Supta Ardha Padmasana or Supta Ardha Padma Paschimottanasana, something like that, whatever we're going to call it, is to bring us down into the lower belly, right in here, in this lower region. So now, having been there, let's just squeeze the knees up to the chest together. You can hold your hands behind the knees. Go ahead and separate the knees so there's room for the lower belly. The knees can be closer to your shoulders versus your sternum. Lengthen the back of your neck so your head is neutral on the floor. And notice the breath expanding into your low belly, mid-torso, the sides of your waist, even the floor, the breath in the back body. And then let's release both feet to the floor. Take your legs out on the floor. And this is a great time in a practice like this where we're coming down to the root, we're coming down into our core. It's really nice to cover the lower body with a blanket. Of course, you can cover the whole body. Please turn your palms face up and come to Shavasana. It's a great time to take off your glasses if you're wearing them. And allow yourself to really relax into the floor. Having seen yourself going through a practice, all these different poses, moments, reflections, now be in the loving witness. Just invite yourself to drop in. Relax the space between your eyebrows and smooth out the skin over your forehead. And relax from your hairline all the way towards the back of your head. From the center of your forehead, as you release and smooth out your forehead, also relax your eyebrows. The place right between your eyebrows and over to the corners of your eyes. Relax the space behind your eyes. So there's less mental activity and the eyes have no pressure at all. Then relax the muscles of your cheeks. Release your sinuses behind the bones of your face. And travel out to the ears, where the hinge of your jaw is so nearby. Allow the lower jaw to drop down away from your upper jaw. Invite your tongue to be really relaxed at the bottom of your mouth. And release the upper lip, your lower lip, the entirety of the tongue, the throat, the space just beneath your earlobes, the space behind your ears, and wrapping around to the occipital ridge at the base of your skull. And allow the shoulders, the shoulder blades, even the collarbone to deeply release. You could imagine a little impression of your shoulder blades and your shoulders against the floor. The collarbones more like driftwood on the surface of the ocean. Allow your upper arms and your elbows to get heavy. Your forearms, your wrists and fingers and thumbs, the centers of the palm, they can all be heavy with relaxation. And allow that ease to come down into your heart and your lungs, your diaphragm. Imagine the kidneys and all the organs across the solar plexus, restoring right now. And then travel down a little further in your body towards the stomach and the abdomen. Encourage this region to also become heavy and relaxed. So you're arriving back more and more in this inner realm, your submarine, further down, coming into the pelvic basin. And now begin to lightly breathe into the lower belly. So meet yourself there and start just gently deepening the breath. So notice like the wave of the breath. Inhale, exhale. Wiggle the fingers and the toes. And you can bend your knees and pause for a moment. Each transition can be just calibrated to and roll to your side. Press yourself up to sitting. And as you rise up to your seat, come into your center, don't allow the thoughts to flood in. Listen for the center of silence that is not lost in all of the thought process of the 6 stations of the mind.
Raise your hands to your heart. Let that gesture bring you even closer to the center of the silence that is not the 6 stations of the mind. We know that our thoughts come from the sense impressions, the wordless sense impressions of our earliest days. And thoughts come from today's sense impressions. So many opportunities for sense impressions to become thoughts, to become a narrative, to become a behavior, to become an entire behavior complex. So rest in the silence that is not yet thought and doesn't become thought and is not lost in your behaviors, whatever they might be. It is the silence that remains and also welcomes us back home. Thank you, everyone. Namaste. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. I do hope you've had some mental ease and tranquility, and that the 6 stations of your mind are not going to be harassing you today. If you'd like to learn more about the 6 stations of the mind or about our yoga teacher trainings, yoga psychology training, yoga therapy training, please check the link in this video and also in the description below this video. If this practice was helpful to you, please click the like button. That's good feedback for me. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments and questions down below. Thank you so much. See you next time.